Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Patrick Sullivan.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing tonight? That's wonderful. It's a lovely crowd, so handsome, so gorgeous, so glamorous and intellectual here at the Center for the Talking Arts in downtown Hamilton. For those of you who haven't had it seared into your memory yet, my name is Sean Patrick Sullivan. I am an award-winning writer, an international fashion icon, and brilliant and perfect at absolutely everything I do, whether it's keeping it together or breaking it apart, whether it's succeeding or it's failing, because you know, kids, there's a time for all of that, a time and a place for all of that. So here's the deal. I am going to tell you a story. It is going to be about my magnificence. But aside from the joy that that will most certainly give you, because it really is tonight a pleasure being here with all of me, there's also something in it for you that you can take home, share with your friends, your loved ones, your colleagues, your occasional weekend lovers when the husband or wife isn't home. And it's some practical advice. And you know what? I won't describe it any further. So here's the deal. I'm from the New York City area. I had a wildly successful career for about 25 years. I'm much older than I look. I make my own skincare products. I had a really, really glamorous, exciting, high-paid career as a creative director for various lifestyle and luxury brands, my favorite to work on being Louis Vuitton. And I was married during that time to my high school sweetheart. It was a marriage that lasted 12 very sexy years. There were 3 ways with the village people, or members thereof. So many adventures. Thanks for bringing your kids tonight. And then there was a second husband, and that second husband brought me to Canada. I met him in New York City when he was on an artist's visa. The artist's visa expired. I was in a very anti-American mood at the time. I'm not anymore. I was almost going to go there, but I shall not. I shall spare you tonight. Are there a lot of artists in the room? My politics are not yours. So here's the deal. So I came to Canada. That didn't work out. It was 8 great years, but I'm the sort of person, first of all, I make a great first husband. Okay, there have been 3.5 husbands. But when it stops working very quickly. I give all of my husbands credit for like knowing when it was time to go. Anyway, after my second marriage, I said to myself, I want to go home, but I don't want to go home because I don't like that whole motif of the homosexual in his mid-40s going back home, and you know, the business that we had together didn't work and the marriage didn't work and I gained 100 pounds and all of that stuff. So what I did was I traveled around Ontario looking for a place to live, and when I came to Hamilton, oh my God, I was thrilled. I was thrilled because it looked exactly like the neighborhood in Brooklyn that my mother had lived in. It looked exactly like the neighborhood in Jersey City that I had lived in, like exactly. Like Newark Avenue in Jersey City looks and feels exactly like James Street. The only difference is that there is a wider ethnic diversity of crazy people. Other than that, it's totally the same. So I moved here, and that's when I decided to have a nervous breakdown. Now, a lot of people who find themselves having nervous breakdowns, midlife crises, whatever you want to call them, will act like victims. So will drug addicts, so will homeless people, so will people who get no respect and find themselves in physically abusive marriages. All of them can go fuck themselves. You always choose. You always choose. And looking back, the reason that I chose and the reason why I went for it so brilliantly was that I hated the person that I had become. I absolutely hated it. His journey was over. There was a beginning, a middle, and an end. The story was lovely, but it was time for that person to go. And just remember something. You can decide something and not know that you're deciding it. And the next time that you find yourself in an argument with someone, you might want to remember that. Anyway, I decided to have a nervous breakdown, and oh my God, there were orgies. There was drug use. There were library break-ins. I may or may not have had a wild weekend with a serial killer. It was fantastic. And the more methamphetamine I used, the hotter I looked. I loved it. I was living the life. Then the hallucinations started. I had conversations with Linda Carter, Belinda Carlisle, Vanessa Williams, Michaela Peterson, Tammy Peterson, Jordan Peterson, Julian Peterson. I'm so blessed. People act like hallucinations are a sign of nothing at all. But hallucinations really are the same thing as music videos from the 1980s. They're the same thing as dreams. They're the same thing as shamanistic states. So all of these hallucinations inspired me to start studying neurology and psychology as I got myself evicted, as I became homeless, as I became park bench homeless in downtown Toronto in the middle of last winter. And I'm not even going to begin to tell you everything that I learned about the history of the world, the reptilians, the Anunnaki, all of the secrets. By the way, kids, just so you know, the Nazis did win World War II. Tulsi Gabbard's going to reveal that and get us out of it. I trust her to do that. She is our Wonder Woman. Anyway, I got sick of it. I got sick of it when I was somewhere near Trinity Bellwoods Park, and I was on a bench, and while I was sleeping, somebody stole my shoes. It was snowing. I ran into a Hasty Market. I bought some maxi pads, some duct tape, some black garbage bags, and I spent 6 hours making myself the coolest, edgiest moccasins you've ever seen in your entire life. And as I was walking in what neighborhood is it? It's very corporate, and it looks kind of like the Soviet Union. If the Soviet Union was glamorous, I think it's Yonge and Eglinton. I was walking around in that neighborhood, and everyone was like, "Where do you get your moccasins?" So anyway, I'm walking around, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I've learned every lesson that I need to learn. I definitely am going to get 7 figures from my memoir instead of 6, thanks to all of this homelessness bullshit. The drugs on the street aren't doing it for me anymore, and I broke up with the guy who was selling for the cartel that got the pharmaceutically viable stuff from China. I don't do junkyard crank, I'm too glamorous for that. So I came back to Hamilton. I broke into my old apartment. I stripped naked. I started jacking off. I called the police and I said, come and get me, because I decided what a great way to get 3 meals a day and a roof over my head. So the police came. They weren't going to arrest me at first, but I started flirting with all of the officers, especially the roided one, because I love a guy who's a steroid abuser. I just love it. Twitchy eyes, even better. Ex-con, definitely. So anyway, I went to jail. And again, it was an amazing success on my part, because what I was doing, kids, was self-directed aversion therapy. I don't even need a psychologist. Cognitive behavioral therapy, get away from me. I'm not interested. I got this. I am Jewel. I am coming up with my own programs in the wilderness of Alaska. So this month in jail was, again, gave me more material for my memoir. There was a guard who stripped me naked and called me daddy and asked me why I abandoned him while he made me sing Bon Jovi songs at the top of my lungs, which really, really traumatized me because I prefer Van Halen. And then, against everyone's advice, I decided to defend myself in court after a month in jail. But first, how much time do I have? God damn it! If you stick around, I'm going to have a bonus story for you, but okay, here we go. So anyway, I defend myself. I walk into the courtroom. Now, here's something you need to know. I'm going to need 2 minutes. I'm sorry. So sidebar. My mother always hated me, and I always returned the favor. It was a very Jewish relationship, and I didn't even know I was Jewish at the time. Here's what I mean. My mother has a Holocaust survivor fetish. And I was always her scarlet letter, this symbol of this affair that she was trying to hide with her boss, who testified at the Eichmann trial. So I didn't find this out until a few years ago when I had cancer. Don't worry about it. I survived. I mean, look at me. Cancer has a chance. So anyway, she always hated me. I always returned the favor. It was a toxic relationship. But I don't know what's up with this country. The United Nations says that the digital privacy laws in Ontario are worse than the ones in Saudi Arabia. I tend to believe it, because despite this total lack of contact with my mom, when I walked into court on a 12-foot by 20-foot Zoom screen was my mother. At which point, and as soon as I walk in my Jeffrey Dahmer couture outfit, she says, "Oh my God, Sean, you look fantastic. How did you lose so much weight?" And I said, "Intermittent fasting and cold plunge from homelessness. And I don't have diabetes anymore." She said, "Oh my God, you look so amazing." So the judge said, "Could you two please calm down?" And it was time for me to do my opening statement, and I got really, really, really scared 30 seconds in. I was like, "Oh my God, why did I do this? Oh my God, why did I do this?" And I went into stand-up comedy mode. I started talking to him kind of sort of the way that I'm talking to you. I looked better. I was 30 pounds lighter. I don't really love being housed. Note to self, I should do a 2-week residency as a homeless person because I want to be able to fit back into those Versace pants. Anyway, I start doing stand-up comedy, and I really hammer the police, and I really hammer the Crown Attorney, and I just stand there. I don't know why I just did that. I mean, I'm still standing, but whatever. So I just stand there, and he looks at me, and I'm thinking to myself, he's kind of hot. Handlebar mustache, like Magnum PI, but silver, perfect. And he says to me, "Mr. Sullivan, you are incredibly argumentative, disrespectful, inappropriate, and by the way, I don't make this stuff up, okay? I'm not a fiction writer. All of this really happened. I really am that interesting." He said, "Mr. Sullivan, and you and your mother, way too American for this courtroom's desires. On the other hand, you're right about everything. You're free to go. I suggest a career in law or stand-up comedy." And here I am. So I've gone over my time. I'm so sorry. Everyone, Mike Durbecker. Thank you.
That was the best 2 extra minutes I have ever heard. I've spent entire decades that were not as interesting as his 2 hours worth of a court appearance. It's depressing as hell, but such is life.